Valerie.
Hi, Rachel. How are you?
Hey, it's good to see you.
You too.
Did you have a good day today?
We did. How about you?
Good. Are you finished with homeschooling or are you still going on?
We are done for the year, but on like cold and rainy days, we'll pull out like the writing or the math or sometimes the reading lesson just to kind of review and stay refreshed. But for the most part, we're done.
Good job.
Thank you.
I saw on Facebook that you were done a little bit ago, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. You must be very organized.
I kind of am for the most part. I really like structure, and I think it's kind of what keeps me sane being at home all day with them. And I feel like it really having that structure it really helps their behavior too.
Mm-hmm.
Because they kind of know what's going to happen during the day. It's not like we're sitting down for 6 hours a day doing schoolwork, but they know what's going to happen, and kids like routine and they like to have something to look forward to and to know how things are going to go, especially at the younger age like mine are.
Mm-hmm. How do you present that structure to them? Is it written down on a schedule, or how do you do that?
So at the beginning of the year, I did write down a schedule, and it looked so great and perfect, but I kind of realized that didn't work as perfect as it looked on paper. So it's kind of been a matter of tweaking it until we found what worked for us.
I'm always interested in how other moms do homeschooling, because having so many young kids, I wonder if I should post it somewhere or just kind of like have it in my brain and kind of change it every day. Do you post it somewhere, or how do you do that?
I did have it in my planner, and I always had that like just right opened up on my school counter, and that was really helpful. But I guess it gets to the point where you kind of memorize it, and eventually it's your routine too, so you kind of know what's going to happen. And a lot of times we break that routine. A lot of times it's like, I imagine, okay, we're all going to sit down for breakfast, and then we'll do Bible, and we'll have a little break, and we'll come back and do, math together, and everyone's going to get along, and it's going to go great. And then realistically, it turns out to be like they're eating breakfast, and I'm feeding the baby, and then by the time they're done with breakfast, I'm just making my breakfast, so I toss a math sheet on the table to keep them there and not to lose their interest while I eat my food quick and then get the baby for a nap, and then we try to sit down and do the stuff that they need teaching with from me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a lot more chaotic than it looks written down. But once a few weeks goes by, they really start to kind of grasp what's going to happen. And they'll try to, get up from the table and run and hide, and we're not coming to the table for school. but really they know that they're going to, and so that helps.
Tell me about your family and your kids' ages.
So I have a husband and 4 kids, and Lincoln is 6, Kira is 4.5, almost 5, Benjamin is almost 3, and Lila is almost 1. And we like doing a lot of stuff outside, camping, hiking. My husband does most of the stuff with them outside in the winter because I'm not really a bundle up and go outside person. So he'll take them snowshoeing and on winter hikes and sledding and stuff like that.
What do you like to do in your free time?
Well, there's not a whole lot of that.
I understand.
But I like planning. I like planning out their lessons. I enjoy that. I like organizing their stuff. That's fun for me. Gardening is a huge hobby, so I love spring. It's got to be my favorite season. Other than that, at this point, that's about it.
What are you growing in your garden?
Oh gosh, like I'm trying everything. Who knows what'll actually grow and what won't. But we've got peas, green beans, carrots, cucumbers, a bunch of different lettuces and spinach, and broccoli, peppers, tomatoes. We're going to try it all. I'm going to try it all and see what happens. It might be a total flop because I'm not an expert, but I really enjoy it, and I really love trying it and seeing what happens.
Mm-hmm. My husband loves gardening, and we do one at my parents' house. So I don't know much about it either. Just
Yeah.
I try to read the packet, like, okay,
Yep.
stick it in and pile up a little bit, not too much.
That's about what I do.
Have you guys been homeschooling the whole time, too?
For the most part, I started Lincoln when he was about 3 years old, just doing little flashcards and drawing letters on boards and having fun with it. And they've also done some ECFE classes, some like 3-year-old 2-hour drop-off classes every couple days just for fun. And the 1 and 2-year-old classes mostly for me. I enjoyed the parent time, but also it was really helpful with like separation and working on that even for when they go to like nursery or children's church at church, or they go to grandma's house or something like that. It was really helpful for learning to separate too. But other than that, we've been homeschooling.
What grades are they in then?
Technically, Lincoln just finished kindergarten and Kira pre-K. Most of their work so Lincoln's way ahead in reading.
Big smile. Thank you, wildflower. You're so wise I can see, and now I'll fly back to my hive and my bees.
He's about halfway through his first grade math book right now. And the other stuff he is just on track. So he'll be starting first grade for the other stuff in the fall. And Kira is about the same. She's almost done with her kindergarten math book though, so she'll be doing first grade math in the fall. And same with reading. It's hard to tell with the reading levels what they are. She's reading like 4-letter words. Good. Almost. Very good.
Like hummingbird.
Like a hummingbird.
It says hump, but it says hump instead of a hummingbird. But it almost says hummingbird.
Very good.
Like gas pump.
Like a gas pump, yes.
What?
Yep. Good job. So she's ahead of where she should be, but I'm not quite sure what grade you would consider it. She's also going to be doing first grade work next year because her and Lincoln stay together in like science, social studies, and art. So those 3 subjects I keep them together on because they're just 17 months apart.
That's kind of what we're doing for Esther and Naomi, even though I don't have a formal social studies or science, but I kind of do my own supplemental stuff. But I love how you do that with them. I bet it's nice too, camaraderie for them to learn at the same time. Yeah,
it is. And it makes it a lot easier on me not having to do 2 different kids with all different subjects, and it's a lot less time consuming this way.
What is your curriculum like?
So I use a lot of different curriculums. For reading, I use a program called All About Reading, and this is level 1 that looks like this. There are 4 levels to this, plus a pre-reading, and it has some cute little readers that come with it that's upside down. And there's a few different ones for each level, and I love that program. It's a little bit different because it doesn't go by grade levels, and which is hard for me because I'm a grade level person. I like to know you are on this grade, you're on this grade now. So that's a struggle for me to deal with, but I've noticed how much they love it and how well they react to it and how easily they pick up reading from it. And so we stick with it. It's easy to teach. There's barely any prep work involved. And it's pretty much a quoted page. So you just really read right from the page and read it to them for the instruction. And plus there's activities and hands-on work that they do, and they use some magnet tiles and stuff to build words, and they really do well with it.
I really like the curriculum a lot, so thanks for showing me that.
I do. I love it. And then for spelling, they also put out, it's All About Learning Press that puts out the reading program. They also put out a spelling program called All About Spelling. And I went through level 1 with my oldest son, and I liked it. But because he's so far ahead of his age for reading, the spelling was a lot of writing for him and a lot of rules to remember, and he's only 6.
Yeah.
So I decided to stop using that spelling program. It's very highly recommended, so I don't want to say it's not a good program.
Okay.
But personally, I found it kind of boring, and it was hard for me to teach, and I almost dreaded teaching it. And I think that made it harder for him to want to learn it too. So we switched over to BJU Press. It's like Bob Jones University, and this is what their spelling looks like. And I like that. I like that one a lot. It's a first grade spelling book, and I've done a few lessons with him just to see if, it would work well with us, and it has so far. He likes it. It's a lot shorter, a lot simpler, a lot less writing, and more fun activities. And then for math, I use Abeka. And this is like their kindergarten math, and it's a lot of fun. I like that it's worksheets. They're not very hands-on, and I think a lot of your curriculum deciding has to do with how much time you really have. So if I had one child, I probably wouldn't have chosen Abeka. I read a lot on like Right Start Mathematics, and I started out last year working with master books, and I really loved it. It seemed like a really good program. I learned a lot, and I'm 30 years old, and I learned a lot doing that book. But I don't have the time with having the other younger ones. I don't have the time to sit down for every subject and try to teach it. So I decided to go with Abeka Math because I could give them a sheet, and they could work on that sheet, and if they need help or they have questions or there's a new concept, I can be there to introduce it. But it's just, and here's the first grade one, it's just one of those subjects that they can do independently for the most part. And then I use Abeka too for writing. This is their kindergarten writing book. It's pretty basic, tracing letters and whatnot. And that works out pretty well. And then I use Abeka Science. This is their science. It's called God's World, which it's very basic. It's just a kindergarten book. There's just some fun stuff that you could honestly teach on your own. But for myself, because I've realized I don't have the time to plan out a lesson anymore. I used to do that when Lincoln was younger. I used to plan out all of his stuff, and I thought, I don't need any curriculum. But I've gone with curriculum because otherwise it won't get done. I won't be able to sit down and plan something out. And it's really basic stuff, learning about, animals and seasons and plants and how things work. And I also add, a friend introduced me to mystery science. So we also add mystery science, which is something that a friend introduced me to, and that's an online, they have free mini lessons. You can pay for a year subscription, which I haven't done because I have enough mini lessons for me. And yeah, it's called Mystery Science, and you just go on there and make a little account, and we'll just kind of use any lesson I can find that goes along with what we learned. So if we learned about snakes, we'll go find something that they have on snakes, or germs, they'll have stuff on germs. They have all different kinds of, weather and snowflakes and a lot of really cool lessons. And they also have like a hands-on project to go with it. So there'll be like free printables for an activity, whether it's like a matching game, or one of them was really fun. It was listening to different frogs croaking, and they loved it because they got to figure out which frog it was that was croaking and learned about all the different sounds that the different kinds of frogs make. And so that's a very nice addition to our science curriculum.
That's great. I'll include all the links below for anyone who's interested in. So Mystery Science, Abeka, and Marie Ripple's, what is that called? All About Reading.
Learning. Yep.
All
and then I use
learning. Okay.
Yep. And then I use BJU Press for spelling.
Okay.
For now. We'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And then I use Social Studies as also a Becca. And I was back and forth about whether to do Science and Social Studies this year. But I love it. I think it's been my favorite part of the year. It's a lot of learning about our country, other countries, continents, presidents, past presidents, some of the main cities in our country and other countries. And it's been really fun because they love learning about all the places, and there's visuals for everything. So, you learn about like the Statue of Liberty, which I'm not sure how well I'm holding that up for the camera.
Yeah.
On that figure. Or, that's just like the country. Like, it's all falling apart too.
And
there's
really
like
cool.
The Pilgrims. And it goes on Puerto Rico. There's just different, Washington, D.C. It's a really good introduction to history.
That's a Becca? The Becca one?
Yeah, that's a Becca. And there's a few different books that go along with that, with the visuals. This is Children of the World. So it learns about, there's all these different countries, Kenya and the Netherlands and Japan. There's all different kinds of countries in there. And they get to learn about different cultures and different things that they do in their cultures and how it's different from here. And I think it's really neat because it gives them a better understanding for people who don't look and act like them. They have the If You series. It's Anne McGovern is the author of those. And it's like, if you grew up with Abraham Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
So we can learn about Abraham Lincoln, and we can take out the book, and we can actually spend, whether it's a day because we read so much or a week because we read a chapter at a time, we can spend time learning about that. And one of our favorites was learning about Martin Luther King. And learning about if you lived at the time of Martin Luther King, and about all the different things that the way people were treated back then. The way people saw other people compared to how they see it now. And it really gave the kids a lot of compassion. Mm-hmm. And it made them think about how they're treating other people and how they're talking about other people who they see down the street that look differently or talk differently than they do. And that was another thing that I got some criticism on from people, was that they shouldn't be learning about that stuff yet. And that is too hard for them. It's too hard of a lesson for them to hear. But really, at their age right now, they're curious. They see somebody on the street who doesn't look at them. And I remember hearing one of my kids, I won't say who in case one day they look back at this video and they're like, oh, you said that about me. But I remember one of my kids, I was walking downtown with them, and he saw a man sitting down, having a real hard time downtown. And he said to him, "What are you doing, fat man?" And it broke my heart because I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe my child said that about somebody. But then you realize that they don't know what they're doing. And reading books like that has helped them to see that it hurts people when they're treated differently, mm-hmm. and to see how wrong it actually is, and when they're talked about differently and stuff. And then here was another one we loved, learning about the Civil War. And here's one about the Mayflower. So you learn about, in Becca Social Studies, you learn about the countries and where our country was founded and stuff like that. And then you could throw in a book like this and really get into it. Mm-hmm. And I like that. I looked at their lessons for next year in the first grade, Social Studies. And it's very similar with a little more detail, and they're more readers, so he'll be able to just read them on his own. And I'll go over it with him compared to me having to sit there at the table and teach every single thing and show every picture. But it's a lot of reviewing what they learned in kindergarten with a little extra detail. Mm-hmm. And I love that because what they learned this year will be easy to forget since they're so young. But the fact that they're repeating a lot of the stuff next year, I believe is really going to help it harden in their brains. Mm-hmm. And then this is another series that I love. It's not quite sure. This one's by Jim O'Connor. It's like what were the Twin Towers. They have a lot of different books in this series. And I got this at a Scholastic book sale, so I'm not sure. It's a Scholastic book too. But there's a lot of different history books with that series too. And then, let's see, we use Abeka Art, which is pretty much just fun cutting projects, a little bit of coloring, some
cute
and stapling.
Does it come with the materials, or do you need to supplement the materials?
Yes, they do have things like paper clippers or paper plates, paper bags, random items that you'll need for each project, paint, sometimes glue, scissors, and stuff. I don't use it really as a curriculum. I mostly use it as a fill-in. So if they're looking for something fun to do, they have projects that go along with their lessons, mostly with the social studies lessons. So if
do you have to? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Do you have to have the teacher's manual? Could somebody just buy the workbook if they wanted? Like the math, do you have the teacher's manual? Or
So I don't have the teacher's manual for math. I ended up, about halfway through the year, I ended up buying it for the science book. And the social studies also have workbooks that come with those, but they're disposable, so I didn't have them to show because they're papers that they rip out and get to color.
Oh, that's okay.
But for the science,
so you have the workbook and the teacher's guide for social studies and science, then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So you suggest that people buy both. I know when I bought the math Abeka that you suggested, and I really like it a lot. It's very self-explanatory how to do it, and
I don't think the teacher's manuals are necessary for most of the stuff. It was helpful for me after kind of realizing how little they put in some of the workbooks. It was nice to have a little bit more of an explanation. But really, I don't think it's super important. And I also don't underestimate the value of Facebook support groups. Because I added myself to some of the Abeka support groups, or like mom's chat groups on there. And if I have a question, same thing with math, I didn't buy the teacher's manual. But I came across something in his first grade book, and I'm like, what is this? Like, I have no idea. I really like having I add myself to some support groups, like some Abeka mom's chats or support groups that they have, where you can go on there and ask questions. And it's really nice for when one of those things comes up and I'm just not sure what I'm supposed to do. And you can ask on there and you'll have everybody else respond and tell you, this is what it is, this is what it is. And obviously I don't want to go doing that every single day, but every few months if a question comes up, it's nice to be able to do that and not have to go buy an expensive teacher's manual.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Thank you for explaining it. I appreciate getting your tips for myself too. If you were to, how would you tell a family that's just starting to homeschool how to structure their day? What advice would you have for them?
Just starting out, take it slow. Eat breakfast. That's that's huge for me. I know I'll so many times try to start without eating breakfast, and I get so frustrated and so annoyed, and I feel a lot more like short-tempered and irritated than if I take the time to just have my breakfast, even if that means they're in the other room like coloring on something or destroying something. It really helps the day. And start with a couple subjects. Not to say that you don't have to know what you want and know that you want to have everything, but start out with a couple subjects that you know you want them to have, whether that's maybe math and reading, and just have a goal of doing those two. And maybe you only do it 3 days a week to start with, just to get into the routine. But it takes time to adjust to a new schedule for yourself and for the kids. It's very challenging the beginning of every year, I've noticed, for them to go from waking up and running out the door to play outside to waking up and getting dressed and eating and sitting down at the table. And so it's an adjustment, and don't feel bad, especially when you have a lot of kids. Don't feel bad if what you plan for the day doesn't get done.
How long would you say each subject takes with the ones that you use with Becca and all about reading, learning?
Well, it depends on how well the kids cooperate. Really, it could be as short as 10 minutes. Science and history, those are short things. The art, they love it, so I give it to them and they do what they want with it. Math, it can be, for my oldest, he can spend 2 minutes on a page and then he could do 20 pages in one day because he likes it so much. Or if he's not in a math mood, he can spend an hour working on the same page. But realistically, I try to keep it around 15, 20 minutes a subject. Yeah, they're young, so they lose interest. Mm-hmm. And you can't really blame them for getting distracted.
Right.
There's 4 of them.
Yeah, I understand with the attention span. I think reading for us is the longest subject. I don't know how much time you spend on that, but trying to teach it both of them and trying to get trying to allow them to get wiggled out while at the same time, especially for the younger that's doing the reading. How long do you take for the reading? Do you do one lesson a day or one lesson every couple days, like doing the words over and over again? Or
so Lincoln, we would do a lesson a day for the most part. Sometimes it would be half a lesson. Sometimes he'd be like, oh, I want to do 2 lessons, because he picks up on things really fast. Mm-hmm. Like, it really, really amazes me the way he picks up on things. Kira's only 4. She turned 4 just before the school year started, pretty much. So we take it a lot easier on her. We'll do a quarter of a lesson or a half of a lesson. I usually try to do about 15 minutes, but if she's getting really into it, sometimes she'll want to keep going and keep going. And that's okay with me. But once she is done, she's 4 years old. She's kind of done. Mm-hmm. And I can see in her brain when she starts to shut down. And at that point, which is usually around 15, 20 minutes, at that point, it's better to end on a good note than to make it something that she grows to hate, if that makes sense.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep, that does. What is your motivation to homeschool?
So I think my motivation is mainly that my mom homeschooled us for basically as much as we wanted to be homeschooled. Mm-hmm. And I really loved it. I did a lot better. I felt a lot more confident being homeschooled than I did when I went to Christian school. Mm-hmm. The high school I really enjoyed. I enjoyed doing classes at our public high school. We went half-time.
Which classes did you take at the high school?
I took a lot of woodworking and construction and gym classes.
Cool.
I remember doing biology at one point and a math class, Spanish, but it was electives. It was all choice classes.
Okay.
And so my mom would take us to the guidance counselor and let us pick out whatever classes we want and go for however long we wanted to. And for me, it wasn't full time. And I got my confidence more from being at home with my family than I did from being with other people. And I just remember admiring my mom so much because she did not have a degree. She did not have what you would look at for somebody who you would want to like educate your children, but she did such a good job, and we never felt like we were burdening her by being home. And I remember just thinking, ever since I can remember, I'm going to be just like her.
Oh.
And I wanted to do things just like her, and I wanted my kids to think of me the way I think of her, which I know is different for every child, and I don't think my kids will think that way of me because I'm half the mom she is. Not even. And she was my inspiration to homeschool. But now that I look at with my kids, I'm motivated partly by the Christian curriculum that I get to choose the way that they're learning. Also that I feel like I thrive in teaching. I love to teach them. I enjoy it. I'm not a very good imagination playing type mom. And I do feel like it's one way that we connect. And I enjoy that too. I'm not anti-public school. I don't think homeschooling's for everybody. I'm not gonna, bash what they're doing out there because I have a
Right.
lot of friends who teach in public schools and I have so much respect for them.
Yes,
So I
I
don't
think
think the
so
teaching
too.
is bad. I don't think the kids are bad. I don't think it's an issue of, we may use public school one day. We take it year by year.
Right.
But for now, as long as it's working for us and as long as the kids are wanting to be homeschooled still, it seems like it's kind of the option that we'll go with.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. You touched on, I know in some states, all the requirements are different, but do you need a degree to homeschool? If somebody was anywhere across the United States, Hawaii, Alaska, do they have to have a degree to homeschool?
At least not in Minnesota. We're in Minnesota, and at least not up here, you don't have to have one. I don't have one. I did do a year and a half of early childhood education classes and then decided it wasn't really for me. So I don't have a college degree, and it's not required in the state of Minnesota right now.
So how do they report to the area school system, or how do parents stay accountable if they maybe they don't need to, which is fine too.
I'm not totally sure about any legal stuff yet because I know that in Minnesota you don't have to fill out any forms until they're in second grade.
Oh yeah, until they're 7. That's right.
Until they're 7 years old, yeah.
Yeah.
So we have one more year of getting to not worry about all of the legal details.
Yeah.
Which I'm fully enjoying.
Right. The state I live in is a little bit, North Dakota is a little bit more stringent in saying it has to do 4 hours a day. So we don't, and stuff. So it's it's a great idea. Here, I think one of my friends tallies the days that she homeschools. And the nice thing is that 4 hours doesn't have to be straight homeschooling. Homeschooling can be home ec, cooking dinner, or PE outside, and so a lot of it's kind of blended. I do enjoy when I was in Minnesota that I think we took the Iowa test of basic skills every year.
Yeah.
We did. It wasn't required to take it that much, but it's just what my mom chose to do.
We did that too each year. I remember my mom would give us those tests each year too.
Oh, and the nice thing, if anybody's wondering what the requirements are in your school district or where you live, just contact, if you live in Texas, Texas Education of Texas or something, and whatever the state is, and ask them, or even call your local school board, and they'll know exactly what you'll need to report or not report. And I mentioned in part 1, the Homeschool Legal Defense Association too, if you're wondering any more legality type things, what the public school can have you do or not do. So, and they can help you figure that out. The Homeschool Legal Defense Association, it's only $10 a month, I guess my friend said, and so you have all the legal help available to you.
Okay.
For $10 a month, lawyers, anybody. So if you were to run across something where they're you have to do this, which if it's within just asking for grades, then that's really easy to give.
That is really nice.
North Dakota, they require proctoring tests. You can work with them what's needed for Minnesota. Do they have to be there, or can you just do it yourself? So that'd probably be the only thing to check on is the proctor test and stuff, and just registering them, and they'll probably let you know what they need to do. Yeah,
I'm sure they will. And it's helpful to have enough people that I know who homeschool, like you and other people, to be okay, what did you do here? Or people in Minnesota probably, to be able to ask, what did you do? How did you do it? And
I think your kids will be great they'll meet the standards just fine.
I hope so. And we differ there.
Kids learn at their own pace too, so it could be.
That's one area that I think we differ from a lot of homeschool families. Is a lot of people will say that, I know a lot of people homeschool because they don't agree with a lot of book work and a lot of sitting time, and we don't have a ton of it. We really, it's 10 minutes here, 15 minutes here, 20 minutes here, and they're playing all in between and they're having a good time. They're not strapped to a chair for hours, but at the same time, we do know that it could be in their future to send them to school. That could happen.
Mm-hmm.
And if I do that, I want them to feel confident going into their grade and going into their classes and knowing that I can do this work. I prepared to be in 5th grade. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever grade, 2nd grade or 10th grade, whatever grade it ends up being, they can feel prepared and not be feeling behind or struggling and embarrassed. And for me, not for everybody, but for me, that's important because I do know that we're very open to the possibility of sending them to school one day.
Yeah. Okay. I like you're taking year by year. Just looking at my list of questions to make sure we're covering them all. I like how you say you're taking it year by year because you don't really know what comes the next year. If something will change for the child, children are changing and growing. You're changing and growing as an individual. Your family's changing and growing as you grow together as a unit. So I understand that.
And that's something that my husband and I have decided when we first decided to homeschool. He has never been homeschooled, and I have grown up mostly homeschooled.
Mm-hmm.
And so he sees a lot of positives that, positive character traits that he got from being in school. And I see a lot of positives that I got from being homeschooled. And so being able to be open about knowing that there can be good things about being in a public school for certain personalities or for certain kids. And I think that's why we've decided to do it year by year. Right now, we're on the same page. We both are happy with what we're doing. But there may come a day for one or two or all of our kids where we say, this isn't maybe what's best for them right now.
How do you, as a stay-at-home mom, how do you find an outlet to relax or to connect with friends or family? Take time for myself. It's so easy just to give all day or to clean all the time.
My husband's pretty good about if I want to go out with my friends. He has no problem usually staying with the kids, especially if the baby's asleep because she's the most needy. So he has no problem staying with them. During the day, my family they're very good about being able to be on the phone with me while they're screaming in the background and fighting in the background. And that's okay with them. I also try to have them all have a quiet time at the same time each day. And that really helps. They don't have to sleep. I mean, you're 6 and 4 years old. Sometimes they'll fall asleep. Mostly they don't. But just a little bit of time to go in your rooms and play, and mom can make lunch and think for a minute. And that works out pretty good.
What advice would you have to someone who is looking to homeschool?
Pray about it. That would be my first. Pray about it. Absolutely, first and foremost. And then think about it. Spend, even a week or 2 weeks if you need to. Spend some time imagining that you are homeschooling next year and see how you feel about it. See how you feel when maybe you're going to be either staying at home all day and not working and giving up a job, or working from home, or working and homeschooling. See how you feel in the middle of all the chaos. Is this something I still want to do? Do I feel like I can handle it? And then spend a week or two imagining that they're at school and see how you feel about that. Do you wish that you had homeschooled? Do you wish they were at home? Are you frustrated thinking about them being in school? See where your feelings go with that. Not to say that we depend on our feelings, obviously not, but it's been helpful for me to do that each year, especially with my oldest. It's always back and forth of whether we're going to send him or not. And I just have to take some time to imagine what I'm doing for the next year. Sometimes when I imagine that he will be going to school, I get like a deep sadness. And I realize that I'm not ready. I'm not ready for him to go to school. I don't think it's the right time for him to go. I don't feel peace about it yet. And then I'll imagine him being at home, and I feel very enthusiastic about it and excited and talk about it. I would say pray about it, think about it, and talk about it. Talk with your husband or wife or significant other, whoever it is that's parenting with you, and see how they feel. Because if you're not on the same page with it, it's going to be a rough ride. And both perspectives are going to have something to offer. And maybe somebody would want to bring it to their husband or wife, and they'd be very opposed to start with. And that's probably natural, especially if they're talking with somebody who's never been homeschooled.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be natural to get immediately like, no way are we going to homeschool response, because there's a lot of stigmas that are put on homeschoolers. There's a lot of stigmas of, hey, they're socially awkward, they can't go to college, they don't know how to do anything, they dress weird, they talk weird. There's all these different ideas that people have about homeschoolers, and it's natural to immediately think, I'm not doing that. We're not going to do that. Our kids aren't going to be like that. And address whatever concerns either side has. And don't avoid them, don't put them off, but address the concerns and be able to say, okay, if you're worried about them being socially awkward, let's look at what we can do for them to get them involved with kids their age. There's sports, there's activities. If you're Christian, there's church, there's homeschool co-ops. We have a homeschool co-op in town. There's a lot of different ways. Maybe you have families that you know who homeschool, and you can work together with them to homeschool and to bring, more of a social aspect. There's a lot of different ways to combat those concerns.
Mm-hmm.
But don't brush them aside. Consider them. Every concern is real.
Thank you so much for all you shared with us today, and I would hope that this is encouraging to other people thinking about homeschooling. Maybe you're currently homeschooling and feeling a little bit of the struggle with having your kids home, and I hope that this is encouraging to other people. And really thank you, Valerie, for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Rachel.